Welcome back to Singing Tips with LJD Studios. Today we're talking about performance anxiety. We're talking about why it happens, what occurs in the body, and how to overcome it. If you have ever struggled with nerves, you know it can be downright paralyzing. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to overcome that so that you can get up on stage and sing the way you know you can sing. So I think this is super fascinating. Your brain knows only one response to fear and stress, and that is basically protect your vital organs, right? So we have this fight or flight response, and it's a good response. It's designed to protect us, right? Especially back in the days when maybe there were real predators out there, right? That fight or flight response kicks in. It helps you to really focus in on the only thing that's important, which is saving your life. So that was all well and good if you are concerned about having to run from a bear or something, but it's not so great when what we're afraid of is being judged. What we're afraid of is not sounding good. What we're afraid of is failure, right? And these are the fears that come up when we're singing, especially when we're performing. But sometimes it happens even when you're alone and no one can hear you. Our voices are so intrinsically linked to our sense of identity that when we go to produce sound, there's this feeling of lack of worthiness or value if we don't make a good sound. So that triggers a lot of fears for people. And so what does our body do? It kicks in that fight or flight response. It's gotten the signal, we're in danger. And when it gets that signal, it closes, right? Because where are all our vital organs? It's like, close your throat, protect your heart, protect your organs, right? And unfortunately, this kind of posture is basically the opposite of what is going to be beneficial to our singing. Not only that, everything kind of like locks, right? Again, it's like a protective mechanism. And when we're singing, we want to feel really, really fluid and flexible, and yes, strong, but not in this really rigid, sort of locked down way. So what are we going to do when that fight or flight response kicks in? Your number one tool in combating the fight or flight response is your breath. So think about what your breathing patterns look like when you're in a state of stress. Typically, it's just in the chest. It's rather rapid. It might be in and out through the mouth. And all of that, again, is a great breath if you're about to sprint away from a predator that is chasing you. Not a great breath for singing, and not a great breath for inducing a sense of calm and ease. So your first tool is to try to move the breath more into your abdomen. And this is great for singing as well, so, right? So when you breathe in, you're like gonna let the belly expand and get big. When you breathe out, you're gonna softly contract the belly. And you're going to do all of this in and out through the nose. And if you do that long enough, the brain eventually gets a signal, oh, I'm not in danger, right? And then we trigger the relaxation response instead. It takes a little while for this to occur. It's not like if you take 3 deep breaths, you're magically going to be cured of your nerves. But if you've got maybe half an hour before a performance and you feel those nerves creeping in, that's a good time to just start breathing slowly, breathing deeply through the nose. Your breath is the communicator between your brain and your body. It's the clearest language you have to speak to those inner layers of your body. So use your breath to tell your brain that everything is okay. Okay, so what if you've tried slowing your breath down, but there's just so much energy in your body? You're like, I'm trying, but I'm too nervous. I can't get my breath to go down there. That happens. Sometimes I think it's helpful to almost take the inverse approach. Rather than trying to just pull the energy down, maybe let's get that frantic energy out first. So this is where I think exercise is super helpful. And it can be any kind of exercise. It should ideally make it fun exercise. Dance around, jump around, be silly, flail about, do a handstand, do some cartwheels, do something that has a lot of energy. Or just if you can't do all that, if you don't have the space or if you're just in a public place or whatever, shake out your hands, shake out your feet, right? Move around in such a way that helps kind of move that frantic energy out of you, right? And then maybe go to that slower breathing technique and see if that doesn't help. There's a technique in the music therapy world called entrainment, which is where music therapists will go in, and if someone they'll put I don't know the fancy words for this, but they'll be able to measure the person's brain waves and watch the waves. And usually they'll be kind of like this, right? Because they're frantic. And so the therapist will turn on music where the frequency of the sound matches the frequency of the brain waves. And so usually it's going to be very frantic music, right? You'd think they'd play calming music, but they start with frantic music until they get those waves to lock in. Then once those waves have locked in, they start calming the music down, and then the brain waves come down with it. So this is kind of the same idea. Just meet your brain, meet your body where it's at, and then start to pull the energy down. I really do recommend that, especially if you're in a really kind of jittery state. Okay, so let's say you've done all the things beforehand. You jumped around, you danced around, you kind of said some like positive things to yourself. You did the slow breathing, and you get up on that stage and that fight or flight response kicks in again, right? Now what are you going to do? You're in the middle of a performance. From my experience, the more you try to fix something, the worse it gets. The other thing that happens when we're in that fight or flight response is we kind of leave the body a little bit. That's really common, right? Again, it's protective. It's sort of like, okay, I can't be here. I can't be here. This is too scary. And we sort of check out. So instead of trying to think about what's wrong, what am I doing wrong with my technique, how can I fix it? My best advice for you, if you're up on stage performing and that fight or flight response kicks in, is to feel your body. Just feel what's occurring. Don't even try to fix it. Just feel it. Right? Can you feel the tightening that's maybe occurring in your abdomen? Can you feel the tightening in your chest? Can you just feel the tightening in your throat? And that's a scary thing to allow yourself to do in front of people. But that's going to pull you back into your body. If you stay in this mode of like, how can I fix this? That's going to keep you up in your brain. And if you can get back down into your body, that's again going to kind of pull you out of that fight or flight response, send the signal that everything is okay, and then things should loosen up from there and you should feel a little bit freer. Other people find it sometimes really helpful to focus on like, what's the song I'm singing about? What are the emotions I'm trying to communicate? Like, what's some kind of artistic aim that I can focus on so that I'm not so worried about what I sound like? That's another tool. So you have to try different things out and see what works for you. But what I have seen work the best is just getting people to stay in their body and even accept like, okay, hey, maybe this moment won't be my best moment, and that's okay. I'm going to be here for it anyways. And ironically, things usually do turn around from there. So let's say you're experiencing performance anxiety even when you're just by yourself. There's no one around, and yet sometimes it's scary to even just produce sound that we hear and then we go, oh, I don't like that. And that can even trigger that fight or flight response. If that's the case and you're in your practice space, my best piece of advice for combating that performance anxiety there is do all the other things we've already discussed, but get a mirror and look at yourself as though you were talking to a friend. And this isn't some like, be positive and loving to yourself thing, although that's great, do that too. This is more, again, about our tendency when we enter fight or flight to leave our bodies. And the first place that shows up is in the eyes, right? Like you're talking to, if you don't want to be present, your eyes might glaze over or they're going to dart off in another direction. You're going to close them. I see people closing their eyes all the time when they're singing. And if you're doing that because that helps you get into your body or get into the feeling, knock yourself out. If you have any struggles with performance anxiety, I do not recommend closing your eyes because it's just one more way to retreat. And the more we retreat, the more the brain goes, oh yeah, things are not safe here. So keep your eyes open and keep them focused. Look at yourself in the mirror. Don't let your eyes dart off. Don't let them glaze over. Stare yourself straight down in the eye. And you might find that also helps you really stay present and keeps you from like locking down and going into that fear-based response in your body. If you don't have a mirror, find something on the wall that you can kind of just look at and keep your eyes focused on. That's really going to keep you present and in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, not outside of your body, but right here, right now. I struggled with nerves and performance anxiety for years, you guys, and I still sometimes do. So I really feel your pain if this is something that you experience. These are the tools that I have found have worked really, really well. I'd love to know what tools have worked for you. Drop me a comment, hit subscribe. Feel free to even send me an email. My contact form is at the bottom of the video in the show notes. I would love to hear about your experiences with singing, with performing, to know what you're working on, and to hear about anything and everything that might come up for you on the path. So be in touch, and happy singing.